Imagine if the water coming out of your kitchen faucet were flammable. That's right, you could light it on fire, or it contains so much gas that a spark could make it explode right inside the plumbing in your house. It sounds implausible, crazy maybe, but a study by researchers at Duke University suggests that in the case of homes near natural gas wells in Pennsylvania and New York State, it is real. Gas is leaking into the water supply. With us this morning is the author of the study, Duke professor Robert Jackson. Rob, welcome to the Inside Track. Tell us exactly what you found, because we're talking about, this is a very controversial issue. You know that as well as I. Critics are lined up against the natural gas drilling industry, the people trying to take gas out of the shale in the Marcellus, for example, one of the deposits in New York and Pennsylvania. What did you find?
Well, we asked two questions. The first question we asked was, if you're living near a gas well, are you more likely to have problems or contamination of your drinking water? And the answer to that question was yes, you were more likely. And then the second question we asked was, if you did have higher methane, was the chemical signature of that methane more like what you find in shallow ground or deep underground, suggestive of a gas well? And we found the latter, that the signatures matched the gas coming up out of the ground deeply.
So it is suggestive that gas is leaking from these wells into the water supply. If that's the case, how's it happening? Is this a natural seepage, or is it actually coming out of poorly drilled wells?
I think the most likely explanation is that there are gas well casings that are leaking. I think that's more likely than the mass movement of gas or liquids thousands of feet underground. It's important to remember that the Marcellus Shale is 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 feet underground in many cases, and a typical homeowner's well is only a couple hundred feet underground. So I think leaky gas well casings is likely.
So people who are lined up against the fracking industry might look at this as evidence, ammunition for their cause. But you didn't find fracking fluids. This is the stuff that they inject deep into the shale in order to try and tease out the gas. Had you found the fracking fluids, would your findings have been much more serious in nature?
Well, I think they would have been more serious. The findings of fracking fluids, which again we did not find any evidence for contamination from those, might have suggested a broader problem. This is a good news, bad news situation in my view. The good news is that if in fact it is a leaky gas well casing problem, then that's a much easier thing to fix than it is to to ban fracking or other things that are much more controversial. So let's take the first step, the easiest step.
I was just going to say, if I were an executive at one of these companies that tries to employ fracking as a gas extraction technique, this would be very good news.
Well, I appreciate hearing you say that. That's not the way the reaction has been so far, but I agree with you.
Now, you agree with me. Why? Because fixing a lousy well casing, as you were just saying, isn't an especially complicated problem. Trying to reverse the flow of fracking fluids into the groundwater might be much more difficult. Is that correct?
Well, that's correct. Fixing or improving, for instance, the quality of gas well casings is something that the companies know a lot about. It's something that's relatively easy to do. And in fact, in Pennsylvania, in the last few months, there have been some improvements in the standards for casings. That's very different than saying there's a fundamental problem with fracturing, with hydrofracking. If that's the case, then we have a real problem, because the whole shale gas industry depends on horizontal drilling and fracking. And really, fracking's moving into all aspects of oil and gas exploration.
Is this study enough to put your mind at rest, Rob, that fracking is safe?
Well, no, it's not. It doesn't put my mind at rest. I guess I think of this as an example think about smoking. So 50 years ago, if you were interested in proving a cause between lung cancer and smoking, an ideal study would have followed people through time and looked to see how that cancer developed, or if it developed. But that's not what people did initially. They just asked, if you smoke, are you more likely to get cancer? That's all we did in this very first step. We asked, if you're near a gas well, are you more likely to have a problem? The answer was yes. It's a first step only, but it does not put my mind at ease that there's not a problem with fracking. We simply don't know.
Okay, so nobody, whether they are advocates for the fracking industry or not, should take this as proof fracking is safe, and subsequent to the new definitions for safe fracking being undertaken right now by the Department of Energy, should feel quite comfortable and relaxed and optimistic about it.
I don't think people should take this study as proof that fracking is safe, and I don't think they should take this study as proof that fracking is dangerous. We simply don't know. And every well in these systems is fracked. So we just need a lot more studies and a lot more information.
All right, Rob, thanks very much. That is Robert Jackson. He is the professor who authored the study that showed methane is leaking from natural gas wells into drinking water in the states of Pennsylvania and New York State.